You're listening to Broncos for Breakfast with Nick Kendell and Scott Kennedy. Head on over to milehighhuddle.com for all things Broncos. Good morning, Broncos country.
Forgot my headband.
I like it. I like to be on time. I think we've got that in common, among other things, that we're usually 5-10 minutes early on here. I'll even hop in the chat. As the YouTube guys know, I'll hop in the chat to kill a little time before this as we get ready for Broncos for breakfast.
That's right. Good morning, everyone. We actually do have John behind the scenes today, which is absolutely great. Love to see John's smiling face in the morning. Ann Rivera's in the house. Hi, Beast. Well, where's my hi, Ann? I'm hurt. Where's Scott's hi? Jeez. And we got Jeremy in the house too, Mr. Kirk Cousins' doppelganger here. So good morning, guys. This is Broncos for Breakfast. We're going to be coming at you every Tuesdays and Thursdays at 8 a.m. Mountain Time. I always have a hard time with my time zone.
Yeah, start doing the time zone Frogger. Let's see. I carry the 1, subtract it. I don't know what time it is.
Yeah, God, we have your East Time. A lot of us are Mountain Time. I used to be Central Time. Carl's got Central Time. Eric is Alaska Time. I'm Pacific Time, so it's just like, oh my God! And we have a couple international writers as well, so it's always something.
We got international Broncos for breakfast people that are getting their lunch right now too, which is great. It's probably we probably got some people that are 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Did we have Philippines on here as well? Yeah, yep. when we did a show, we've had someone for the Philippines also.
Vietnam,
so, love the check-ins.
Turkey. Had China once as well, which was really cool. So
Ophir is from way out there too, so it's probably tomorrow there or way early today. I can't keep track.
Exactly. So Broncos for breakfast. Good morning, guys. It is Thursday morning. We're getting at it. You can follow us at Mile High Huddle. Please do so. You can also follow us on Twitter. That would be a great help. You can follow me, Nick Kendell, at Nick Kendell MHH, and you can follow Scott at Twitter as well, at Scott Kennedy. Also, guys, most important thing you can do, probably outside of super chats, which are always appreciated, but subscribe, like, and share to our YouTube page. And that doesn't just go for our YouTube page, obviously, although the Mile High Huddle one is very helpful as well. But also go subscribe, like, and share Scott's YouTube page as well, youtube.com/C/Scott Kennedy. I actually guested yesterday on his show. We did a kind of looking back on a lot of the history of the Broncos and kind of our Mount Rushmore, some guys that are the biggest busts, et cetera, et cetera. So it was kind of fun to go down memory lane there. I am not the best Broncos historian out there, but I've been, from 2000 on, I've been a psychopath following the Broncos.
You're old. The time goes fast. You're old enough to have 20 years in there,
Yeah,
I remember the 20 before that. So it was, we started getting into the 20 before that, and we needed a little help.
Yes.
So we needed some boomers in there to talk about some of the players that they had seen, and we've gotten some decent chatter on that already. So
awesome.
We'll link it later. To make sure that you get a chance to see it. But it was the best ever new series I'm doing on ours, and we did Nick best ever Broncos.
Yes, we did. It was fun. It was really fun to talk about great quarterbacks that played for the Broncos because I'm tired. I'm so tired. But we got Ann Rivera saying good morning to Nick and Scott after we called her out. Thanks, Ann. I appreciate it. We got Poor Man Poison coming in here with it looks like a beautiful hiking picture there in the background. Good morning to you all. Yordi Lopez in the house. How you doing? Good morning to you. Gary coming in from Arkansas. I really want to get down to Arkansas. The national park there, the hot springs, looks beautiful. It'd be awesome to get to. Hey, Beast, how are you? It's from Yordi. Anthony Cordova. Good morning, Nick and Scott. Go Broncos from Arizona. Have you been to Arizona before, Scott? I've never been.
Yeah, I have. About the only place I haven't been is I have not been to Boston and up, and I have not been in the North Midlands of the country. Otherwise, I've pretty much like the Dakotas and Montana. Otherwise, I've been everywhere except Alaska. But otherwise, I've been everywhere in this great country of ours.
Yeah, I've. If there's mountains, I'm there. So Arizona does have some mountains. They're not the forested that I tend to prefer, but I'll need to get out there at some point. Johnny Daisy coming in here saying, morning, guys. Good morning to you. Dakota, speaking of the Dakotas in here, Dakota Whitehouse. Hello again, Broncos country. Bob Skinner always coming in here, rocking the merch as well. Always love Bob rocking the merch, saying good morning, Broncos country. We got Stepo saying, what's up, guys? And Sebastian, how you doing, Sebastian? Good morning. One more day closer to football season. Your lips to God's ears. And today, we're going to be talking about a little bit of Broncos dark horses, some guys that maybe kind of on the fringe of the roster that we might think have somebody or have a chance to make some noise this year. So I'll get us started off the bat. One who caught my eye last year, when I got across the pond here, Brian Phelan from Dublin, Ireland. Let's go Broncos. Locke to have a great season. Man, hopefully you're right. Clint Ashworth's also in here. Good morning, fellows, from Lake Charles, Louisiana. And we got Anthony saying Stona and Flagstaff are beautiful. Nick, definitely check it out one day. Beautiful hikes. I'm all about the hikes. I'm already planning my next backpacking trip, so let's get going. But Broncos, Darkhorse. So this team has, obviously, it's a pretty good roster. Peyton has done a good job filling out this team, but there are a few spots where, there's going to be some guys that will surprise this season. And my number one I'm going to kick off here is Deshawn Williams, defensive lineman from Clemson. He kind of came in last year down the stretch, was making some noise after Mike Purcell's injury. Former Clemson player. And sometimes those defensive linemen, they can take a few years to kind of get from the college level to the NFL level. There is a solid transition there, but I was pretty impressed with Deshawn Williams down the stretch last year. He can do some 1 technique, 0 technique stuff, kick out to 3 technique. And he's been somebody who's been on and off the Broncos roster for a few years now, working with Bill Kollar, who's a renowned defensive line coach in the NFL for the Broncos right now. And Williams caught my eye. And I know that they spent a late third round pick, 95th overall, on Melvin Gordon. But I'm saying Deshawn Williams, don't sleep on him. I think he's got a chance to make some noise on this team this year. He won't be a starter in front of the likes of, Shelby Harris or Draymond Jones, but you're going to need depth on the defensive line. And Deshawn Williams caught my eye. I think he's going to be a good one.
Well, as we've talked about from a scouting perspective, the trenches are a grown man position. Mm-hmm. Those are the positions where the strength, which comes later in development than quickness, because you'll get a 15-year-old kid running a 4.40 with a 4.1 shuttle. That happens. But you put him up against a 20-year-old guy in the trenches or 25-year-old man in the trenches, he's going to get his butt whipped. So that's why the trenches experience matters, because they call it old man strength. I know it's like I'm as strong now as I was when I was 18. Couldn't catch that guy to save my life, but I could probably arm wrestle him. So it's a grown man game in the trenches. So that's one of the reasons why it takes longer to develop, is because you're going against guys that can squat a piano and bench press a house that have been in the league for a while, and they don't lose that as they get older. So as they continue to develop, 25, 26, 27 years old, that's when you start hitting the peak years for those trench guys, and they can keep that level till their mid 30s.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's a great point. He's a guy who it takes a little bit to kind of get in that weight room strength. He's gotten stronger. He's not the biggest player per se from the frame perspective, 6'1", but another guy who kind of kicked around for a while before they really stuck on. I mean, both Broncos, 2 of the 3 starting interior defensive linemen are that case. Shelby Harris kicked around the league for a little bit before he found a home in Denver, and obviously he's found a home. They paid him pretty handsomely to stick around for a few years. And Mike Purcell as well, another defensive lineman who kicked around the league for a bit, a fringe roster guy, and landed. So Melvin Gordon, step up, buddy. I know you're a 3rd-round pick, but if you don't play well this year, I think Deshawn Williams has a good chance to take that roster spot from you. So that's a dark horse for me.
So I love reading this one, and you start talking Chelsea snob. Scott, I read this wrong. I read it. Scott, my friend, is an absolute Chelsea snob. No, I read it wrong. Punctuation matters. Scott, my friend, is an absolute Chelsea snob, and for some reason does not believe you are a true fan. Please let him know the truth. Well, what do you need to know? What do you need to know as far as being a true fan? Some of those guys take it a little more seriously than I do. Like, well, if you're not in the stadium, you're not a true fan. My ass. There's 60 million Chelsea fans around the world. I've been to 5 games. I've seen them at Chelsea in Champions League in Paris. I've seen them at the Bridge. I've taken my dad to the Bridge. So we've been in 2 games together. I took my, at the time, 6-year-old son to the Bridge and went. I have poured my fandom into Chelsea, and I haven't been a fan a long time, about 8 years, compared to some other things. But yeah, I'm a Chelsea fan. What do you want? What do you want to discuss? Have him hit me up on my soccer account, which is Scott Kennedy FC on Twitter, and see what he has to say. Prediction for how many snaps Baron B gets. Help me out with this one, Nick. This is a guy that does well going forward, could put his hand down on the edge and be a 4-3 edge rusher in passing situations. I think he'll get a lot of different chances to look, but he's an attack-minded linebacker, which I like. If in this day and age, in the days of 7v7 football, if I want a guy in coverage, I'm just going to get a big safety. This is an attack guy. This is an attack guy who you can use him in passing situations because he can go edge rush. So, what do you think? Where's he going to fit in? And Simon, appreciate it.
Yeah, this is a good question, Simon, and we do really appreciate the super chat, the Canadian dollars up there north of the border. So let us know about where you're in Canada. My cousin seeds clouds in Alberta to protect the crops up there. He's got a cool job. But it's Baron Browning. I mean, this is a tough question because a lot of it is going to depend on how comfortable he looks. And reports are coming from rookie minicamp that he actually looked pretty good there at the off-ball linebacker position. I think mostly lining up at will, but it was mostly just one-on-one drills. So it will be interesting. I do think that Josie Jewell's position, while he was solid last year, Josie Jewell is what he is, right? Like, he's not going to be out of position very often, but he's a smaller guy. He's not the most athletic. He's not going to kill you, but he's also not going to make plays outside of structure, like beyond. You're not going to ask him to do stuff beyond. Baron Browning can do the stuff beyond. So if Browning shows that he has the mental capacity to come in as a rookie, which, I wouldn't be upset at all if he didn't. He needed a year to marinate. And the Broncos would be fine doing that this year. But how many snaps he's going to get? I think there's a good chance he could take over the starting snaps, either via injury or just out beating out Jewell. But he's also going to have to beat out Justin Stranad as well. So I don't know the exact snap number. I don't know what the average snap number is for a starting linebacker in the NFL. But also because the Broncos are going to be using much more 6 defensive back looks this season. I mean, when you have as many safeties and cornerbacks of quality that the Broncos have this year, you're going to figure out ways to take the linebackers off the field because, I mean, that's just the AFC West is becoming the Big 12. That's where I'm at. It does sound like the Broncos are going to try Baron Browning first at will. And then if he struggles there, they're going to move him to more of that stand-up edge rusher Sam position. But it sounds like will first. And in Vic Fangio's scheme, I think that is okay because you're still going to have blitzes from him. And they're not going to ask him to man up too much outside. And he can do that. Like, with how much drop zones there are, is it more important to have a guy who has some length that can do a little bit of everything from the linebacker position that can, drop zones, length, cover area, or somebody who's like a Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah who doesn't have the length, can't really play in the box, or at least there's a projection to play in the box. The better man coverage, but like how often are you going to actually be using that?
Well, and what we're talking about when we talk about Owusu-Koramoah, completely different skill set. He's got 40 pounds on him.
Yes.
This is closer. If we're going to make a comparison, let's look at Azeez Ojulari. He's about the same size there as a guy coming out of the University of Georgia. So he can absolutely. I bet he's in the neighborhood of 250 now because he was 242 in January. Yeah. So I bet with more being able to focus, these guys go to specialists. Their agents will put them up in. Chip Smith's performance, athletes' performance, where they're doing nothing but getting bigger, faster, stronger for the offseason. So, again, his ability to go forward will make an impact. Darkhorse, getting back to the subject at hand. Yeah. For me, a Darkhorse isn't necessarily a fringe guy. It's just somebody that you might not expect. So I'm going to make the case for Drew Locke.
Oh, I like it. Okay, let's hear it. I need this. I needed this in my morning. I needed my coffee.
Exactly. I was like, I know how to kick this thing off. I'll make the case for Drew Locke because what Drew Locke does, if Drew Locke has a season where he exceeds expectations, the trickle-down effect is going to be huge. Yeah. Now we can start talking about all the receivers as well. Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, who I put in as one of my dark horses, just coming off an injury. But let's start with Drew Locke. He's actually younger than Josh Allen. That's a guy that we've been, making a lot of comparisons with as far as, where should he be at the time. So I went and looked today just for the heck of it at Josh Allen's first 18 starts, his first 18 starts in the NFL. And he was a 55.8% passer and a dead-on 1-to-1 touchdown interception ratio in his first 18 starts. So it was 19 and 19. That's not too far off where Drew Locke is right now. The difference to me was when I watched film on both of them is Josh Allen is really, really good at improvising. His when a play breaks down and his ability to get off a pass accurately from different arm angles. He's got a little sidearm release that comes out in a hurry. And, I don't know that Drew Locke is going to have something like that, but Drew Locke has plenty of arm talent. But if he can take that step where he's only got basically one season, for me, this is his second year of being a starter. Yeah, he got some games. He got some games before, but he's got 17, 18 starts right now. This will be his first full off season going in as a presumed starter. We know, and not necessarily presumed, but in theory, it's his job to lose. I think Teddy Bridgewater is brought in as insurance in case Drew Locke doesn't step up. So Drew Locke could be that dark horse candidate to exceed expectations, because right now the ceiling's, the bar set fairly low. So if you get back to that 2-to-1 guy, 2 touchdowns to 1 interception ratio, that's going to have a trickle-down effect that's going to affect several other players down the line.
Yeah, that's a good call. And I like your thinking here. We got Mitch Man saying, did Zach convert Scott? Nick, how did you let that happen? And I would like to say that Scott said it was a dark horse. So I don't know how converted he is, but there is a case for it. And I'm here for it. I'm hoping. I really am hoping that Drew Locke is a guy who turns it around this year. So we'll see. I'm going to have my next dark horse here. And this is a position that the Broncos really lack depth right now. So there are snaps to be had. So somebody that I kind of pushed back on last year because I thought the cart was getting before the horse. But he obviously does have talent. And that is Albert Okubenom, tight end from University of Missouri. A big boy, like 6'5", 260, I think is what he measured at the combine, and ran that 4.5 40. He has a lot of work to do as far as the technique of separating. He plays way too high right now. He turns like a battleship, is as like a scouting term I'd like to hear from the taller wide receivers who cannot.
Aircraft carrier. Aircraft carrier is the one you normally hear. Yeah.
Yep. So he really good going straight, but tight ends, you're going to have to be able to do more than that in the NFL, unless you're going to be a very niche seam receiver. And also 6'5", 260, dude couldn't block the sun from his eyes. That's something he's going to have to work on as well if he's going to be a tight end, especially with Noah Fant. You don't want to relegate Noah Fant to being the wide tight end. And Scott, I'm getting a little bit of echo.
Okay, you turn it down some. Yeah.
So Albert Okubenom, no. The Broncos lost or moved on from Nick Vannett. There's not really another tight end on this roster that really gets me going. And I'm an Iowa fan, so I know about tight ends. I know a thing or two about tight ends. Albert Okubenom, I'm excited for him this year. He showed some rapport with Drew Locke, and I think more teams are going to be focused on Noah Fant entering year 3 than Albert Okubenom. So I got to say the name as many times as possible to show how tuned in I am, because that name is impossible to say. So he's one. I think there's a role here for him. The biggest thing is he's going to have to block better. He's going to have to block better. But I'm excited. I'm going to be curious to see what he can do this year.
And we had a question coming in from Malcolm, who's always a great contributor for us. Mm-hmm. What defenses are used in the AFC West? John and Nick, I'm going to put this one on y'all. Because basically, for me, every defense is multiple. It's there's base packages, but you may only see that on first down, and that's it. You know, so I think of basically every defense is multiple. Whether you're coming out with a 3-4 or a 4-3, it's going to go to a nickel before too long, and even a dime pretty soon after that. But your base defenses, what are you looking to face coming in the AFC West twice a year?
Yeah, I can get into this, and I think defenses, we need to evolve a little bit from talking about base to mainly talking about, what coverages teams utilize the most. Because a lot of times your defenses are more predicated on what you're doing with your defensive backs versus what your front looks like in today's NFL. In my opinion. So Vic Fant, luckily this will make it easy. The Chargers and the Broncos are running the same defense. The Broncos are running a match quarters, cover 4, cover 6 kind of defense with a lot of split field looks from the safety. And the Chargers are going to be doing the exact same thing because Brandon Staley is a Vic Fangio disciple, was with Vic Fangio in Chicago, came over to Denver, was the defensive coordinator of the number 1 defense in the NFL last year with the Rams, and is now the head coach for the Chargers. So match quarters defense. Then you have the Oakland Raiders. I believe Dan Quinn is now their defensive coordinator. It's either Dan Quinn or Gus Bradley. I always mix those two up. They're both Seattle cover 3 guys. They're running a cover 3 defense. Think about the Seattle defense. You have the 2 bigger cornerbacks if possible, and the single high safety, the Earl Thomas type, and the box safety. I do think that the cover 3 is kind of going the way of the dodo as far as the prominent defense in the NFL. There's enough cover 3 beaters out there that you can lean into. But that's what the Raiders are going to run this year. Good luck to them for that. And then you have the Chiefs. They run a 4-3 base, but it's much more of it's an attacking 4-3 base. And they kind of have to, given their personnel. So that's Steve Spagnuolo. He loves to blitz. And they're going to do a lot of multiple stuff with their safeties. The Chiefs, they're obviously an offensive team, but they do have a really good safety duo in Tyrann Mathieu and Juan Thornhill, who's slept on pretty good there. So they can do a lot of different stuff. And I think Tyrann Mathieu makes that defense so multiple because he can play single high. He can play split field. He can play slot. He can play in the box. He's one of the best safeties in the NFL. So that's an interesting defense, much predicated on blitzing, though, because they don't have the horses up front to generate pressure without blitzing. So there you go. Malcolm, if you have any other questions, hit me up on Twitter. There are people who are better with scheme than I am. I typically am better with personnel, but we can get into it. It's a fun time, so I'm excited about it. And we got Air Mason coming in with the Vegeta picture here, I believe, over on YouTube. Guys, if you are joining us on YouTube, like, subscribe, and share. And it's he says 28-3. So Air Mason, obviously I would say a Patriots fan here, but he's giving you a hard time, Scott. That was rude, Air. It took me a second to get it. You're gonna make Scott.
I'm sorry. What'd you say? I have a block. I used to block in my settings for certain numbers, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh man, that's I was equally upset about that. I was probably like the commercial of Peyton Manning, in all the Falcons gear, like just eating the chips and stuff. So, any UDFAs that stood out so far, Peter, I'm going to be honest with you, it would just be pure mouthpiece stuff because I'm not at Dove Valley watching it. So I typically avoid the UDFA kind of conversations until I can actually get my eyeballs on it via the live reps in preseason. So,
and right now, Beast says Himmelman as the guy that's standing out early. So much so that I don't know who that is. I don't know who he is. So sorry, I'm not more help on the undrafted free agents. They're undrafted free agents for a reason. They'll be tough to. It's tough for them, obviously.
Yeah. No, absolutely. But the Broncos do have a pretty good record here recently of UDFAs making the team and making an impact. Shaq Barrett, UDFA, obviously. You had Phillip Lindsay, and now you have Malik Reed. So again, we're just going through rookie minicamp right now. I'm going to wait until OTAs, actual training camp, and especially the preseason games. I will break apart the preseason games, and hopefully the NFL will be good with the Game Pass of getting the coaches film up in a timely manner because I need to have that coaches film. I want to watch the trench play. It's really hard to watch the trench play from the broadcast view. So we'll see there. But Scott, you're up on deck again for another Darkhorse, as long as we're not missing another super chat here. It doesn't look like it. So second Darkhorse here.
Well, I'm gonna use the trickle down effect. With one guy coming back, with Cortland Sutton coming back, he should be a candidate for what do they call him when they come back from injury? Comeback player of the year. Not a comeback player of the year, but something like that. A comeback player of the year type. He's young, almost 1,200 yards and a Pro Bowler in his second year. The bad news is if he has that type of year again, he's going to get expensive because he's in the last year of his contract. But that's okay. You'll take it. You'll take it. You'll take a 6'4" receiver. That's now he's coming. A skill player coming off an ACL tends to worry you a little bit just because he's you're talking about twitch and size and all that kind of stuff, but he's not a quick twitch receiver. He's 6'4", 215 pounds. He's probably spent a little more time in the weight room. Wouldn't surprise me if he plays at 220 this year, 225. So he's a size and strength receiver, not necessarily a corner running back type. Because legitimately it's an 18-month injury before you're full speed. If you're one of those skill guys, but the bigger you are and the more you rely on size and strength, the quicker that you can come back. He's a big dude. Again, another reason why one of my biases, I love the big receivers. This helps with that too. So if he comes back, we already talked about Drew Locke. If he takes a step forward, you bring him back, Cortland Sutton. Now all of a sudden, your wide receiver crew is starting to fall in line with what you expected last year before some of the injuries. So Cortland Sutton, comeback player of the year type. And what does that do for Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler? They should get better too, right?
Yeah. Tim Patrick also out there. So although Tim Patrick and Cortland Sutton both play the X for this offense. Broncos seem to value the X. I mean, they invested then again in Seth Williams in this last draft, probably a de facto Tim Patrick replacement. I mean, some people will be upset about that, but that's the business, guys. You can't keep everybody. Good teams, especially, you're going to lose good players if you're a good team because you can't pay everyone. I have it on pretty good authority that the Broncos, George Paton specifically, big fan of Cortland Sutton. So we might even see a contract come down the tracks before the season even starts. So even that, and that's kind of risky with the injury, but the Broncos will know through training camp, et cetera, what's going on with Sutton's knee, how he's looking out there. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if we saw him get a contract extension. He's the Broncos' probably second best offensive player. You can flip a coin. It's either him or Garrett Bowles right now, as far as the most valuable. Air Mason coming in again with the $2 super over on YouTube saying my favorite Broncos podcast. Thank you, Air Mason. That really means a lot. Obviously there are a lot of good ones out there. But the fact that you'd say that this is your favorite, we must be doing something right. So we appreciate that.
We take a hard time. Well, that's what it is.
For sure. Another dark horse for me, somebody who, some people probably in the comments will say, I'm being biased here, but I think people are sleeping on this guy, Michael Ojamunia. Obviously the Broncos went out very hard last year and invested in the cornerback position, but the Broncos staff went out of their way multiple times last season to end the year to praise Michael Ojamudia's play. He was a third-round pick. He's a decent scheme fit. He's a good athlete overall. He's got great size. Maybe he isn't going to be high on the pecking order this year. Maybe he'll be more special teams. But we saw last season, the Broncos, this isn't even hyperbole. The Broncos got down to their 7th, 8th, and 9th cornerbacks. So I think you have a chance. You have Bryce Callahan, who's injury-prone. You got Ronald Darby, who I think played his first season without missing games due to injury. There's a chance you're going to see Michael Ojamudia out there. Now, is he going to be a boundary cornerback? Is there a chance that he moves to a safety position? That remains to be seen, but I would not bury Michael Ojamudia yet. A third-round cornerback, he still has plenty of value out there. Maybe he only ever ends up being a Kayvon Webster type. The Broncos fans out there will know that name, where he's more of that 4th, 5th cornerback that's playing some snaps, but more so value on special teams. That's fine. He was a third-round pick in a year that you had 3 third-round picks at a value position. That's fine, but I would not completely bury Michael Ojamudia yet. I feel like he is being extremely slept on. I'm hearing more people talk about like Essang Bassey than I am hearing about Michael Ojamudia. So, yeah, and they didn't replace him towards the end of the season. He was actually, I would say he was pretty easily their best cornerback the last 5-6 games. That's not saying much. I mean, sorry, Motley and Bosby. That's the guy who they couldn't get off the field soon enough was Bosby. So Ojamudia showed better down the stretch, and I'm guessing he will be a good special teams player this year. But don't forget about him. He's definitely a dark horse this season.
Well, I'm going to stick on the offensive side of the ball, and I'm going to go to a rookie because we talked about him before when we were talking about rookies that could surprise. So I think this still fits in, and we're talking about Seth Williams, Auburn wide receiver, 6th-round pick, I believe. Mm-hmm. That fits as a sleeper, as a dark horse. He's got a similar skill set to Cortland Sutton as far as the size and strength and catch radius and all that type of stuff. Will he be Cortland Sutton early on? No, not saying that. But if one of these guys slips up and he steps up, then Seth Williams, I think, is a 2nd-round type of talent and could absolutely, like I've said before, and for the new people, this will be new. And for those of y'all that have been around a lot, I'm going to repeat myself, and I apologize, but he was always just on the cusp of breaking through. And part of that was the Auburn offense. You know, they ran the top runner in an Auburn offense was typically the quarterback when they were successful. And so it was a very option-based, didn't have a terrific throw into Seth Williams the whole time, but he still ended up, I think, as the 4th.
Pause. But just real quick, I don't want to take you off your beat here, but did you see Jordan Palmer said that Bo Nix is his bet for going number 1 overall in the 2022 draft?
I didn't see that, and that would no.
I just had to because I saw that today, and I was like, I had to read it 3 or 4 times to make sure that I got to be reading this wrong.
Yeah, Bo Nix came in with all the stars and all the hype, and he hasn't lived up to it. He's been okay, but he's he'll be a 4th-year starter. I think he started as a true freshman, so he's got to go and he's got to take that step. But that's too late for Seth Williams. Seth Williams played through Bo Nix growing pains, so that didn't do Seth Williams any good.
No.
I've questioned their quarterback recruiting. Malik Willis is gone. Malik Willis probably has a better chance to go number 1 overall. He was at Auburn and transferred out. When I don't know exactly when it happened, if it was a direct relationship to Bo Nix, but let's be honest about it here. So, Seth Williams has been a really good receiver at Auburn, but never quite hit that stratosphere that I think he could. So I'm gonna put him on the dark horse list of a guy to look out for. And again, a lot of this trickles down from the quarterback play. If the quarterback play comes up, all these receivers are going to get better. If we go one more, and shouldn't the right tackle position improve this year? Shouldn't that be another place where you get better play? So again, you're talking about all of these keys in the offense, another running back in the fold, another year for your quarterback. Hopefully he steps up, a healthy wide receiver, all of the reasons that we're talking about going from 5-11 to possibly 12-5, 11-6. Can the Broncos make that jump? A lot of these guys are going to have to step up. It's a lot of ifs for sure, but it's exciting.
Yeah, this offense, I mean, if there was no excuse for Drew Locke last year from a personnel standpoint, there's absolutely no excuse this year for his play. If he doesn't get it done this year, if he's a bottom 5 quarterback again, hell, I'll even say bottom 10 quarterback, then the Broncos need to be looking to move on and improve the position, because having a bottom 10 quarterback, you never want a bottom 10 quarterback, but you can kind of like live with it in this like early like feeling out stage of a young player's career. Like, are they going to be the guy? Are they not going to be the guy? But Drew Locke is coming down the tracks where he's honestly, I mean, he'll be on his contract year next season. And then it's like, okay, do we pay this guy? And you can be in an issue where, you're not paying him. You're paying him nothing right now, right? You're paying him pennies on the dollars compared to the other quarterbacks out there. When you get in trouble is when you pay mediocre quarterbacks big contracts. That's when
you're in a situation like the Jets were with Sam Darnold. Overpaid for a guy, and then the Panthers go and pick up his option. Okay. I mean, they're on the hook for $20 million next year for Sam Darnold. So they're counting on him making that next step. Frankly, I'm out of dark horses. I don't know how you're doing.
I got a few more.
I want to talk a little bit about the quarterback ranking that came out from Pro Football Focus yesterday. And
yes,
because for me, obviously we can talk about Drew Locke and where he's ranked, but there's some interesting things in there as well, and what happened in the draft that got my attention.
Oh, that's good. Did you see also just real quick? Did you see that Pro Football Focus ranked Kyle Pitts as the number 4 tight end in the NFL?
I did a story about it today, and if you read between the lines, that's why I really like this format, because in writing you have to be just a little bit more careful. Because you can be branded a hater in a hurry. I'll drop it in the private chat if y'all want to use it. But I did, and you look at the numbers, and it doesn't really take that much to be a top 5 tight end.
No,
that's why you don't spend first-round picks on tight ends.
Yeah.
I compared the numbers with Austin Hooper's Pro Bowl season in 2019. He only started 10 games. He had 70 catches for about 775 yards and 6 touchdowns, sharing the ball with Julio Jones and an emerging Calvin Ridley. Those guys had 3,000 yards between them. How much better is this going to get? It's a zero-sum game. There's only one ball. That's why it didn't make a whole lot of sense. But the smoke is getting really, really thick on Julio Jones being gone.
Yeah.
So that's where it made sense to me. If you think you're going to get 4 or 5 more years out of Matt Ryan, it's possible, then you go get the Julio Jones replacement, who's been the cornerstone of your franchise for the last 10 years. But yes, I did see that.
Yeah. And I want to give a shout out to a couple of supers that have come down the tracks here. Kyle always being generous every morning for Broncos for Breakfast with a $10 super over on YouTube. Good morning, guys. Great stuff as always. Kyle, you're great stuff. We appreciate it. Air Mason coming in over on YouTube as well with a $2 super saying can't teach 6'4". If they could, there would be, that would be great. I wish you could teach 6'7", 320 pounds with a 34-inch arm length. That would be great as well for those gosh darn offensive tackles that can't seem to find in the NFL and the Broncos in general. But the quarterback rankings, you're right. Yeah, let's get into it. Number 1 overall, unfortunately for Broncos country, it's probably going to be this way for a bit. Patrick Mahomes, just 25 years old, probably the most valuable player in football right now. Got another 10 to 15 years of him in the league. That's a big reason the Broncos really need to figure out the quarterback position, because if you want a fat chance in hell, you're going to have at least a top 10 quarterback, top 12, and we'll see. But Patrick Mahomes, number one. You don't have any problems with that,
so
right?
my question on that, Nick, is why not Aaron Rodgers, the reigning MVP, at 1? And if not 1, then 2. How come he's behind Tom Brady at 3? Would you rather have Tom Brady at Denver next year, or would you rather have Aaron Rodgers? To me, that's
Aaron Rodgers.
I'd rather have Aaron Rodgers. Right?
Yep. Not
For
close.
one season, because that's what this is. This isn't about we're starting a keeper league in fantasy, because then it's Patrick Mahomes all day. So are you using the offseason stuff against him? Because if you are, why the hell is Deshaun Watson so high? He might not even play. So I had a little bit of an issue with that. To me, it seemed a little inconsistent in the rankings. If you're using the us, but I don't think I don't have. There's a phrase I use that I won't argue levels of elite. If you want to say Patrick Mahomes, I'm going to say I get that, absolutely.
Yep.
I'll argue Aaron Rodgers over Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Or over anybody else, because to me he can't be lower than 2, can he?
No, I think I agree with you there. I think Aaron Rodgers has got to be number 2. And honestly, I would even put I know he kind of was not the best down the stretch last year, but I'll take Russell Wilson over Tom Brady as well. I mean, Tom Brady, you talked about it yesterday on your channel, which I'll drop in the comments here if you guys want to check that out. But the Tom Brady has been kissed with fate beyond measure as far as the team surrounding him year after year, the coaching staff, and not to take away too much from him, because he is still arguably the GOAT, but like Tom Brady's had a top 10 defense almost every single year of his career, and he's also had great coaching almost every single year of his career. So Tampa Bay,
there's a guy on Twitter, I don't know if you follow him, he's got almost 80,000 followers for basically just hating Tom Brady.
Is it Barry?
Yes.
Is it Barry? Yeah. Yep.
I'm like,
yes.
He convinced my Boston friend that maybe Tom Brady's overrated. This guy is it's crazy. Ultra weed hater, I think. He goes into he's pretty funny, a pretty funny follower. His act gets a little old quickly, so I don't know how much longer I'm gonna follow him. But he's enough. He puts up legit stats on things. So when he's serious about it, like, hey, this makes sense. Talking about the defenses that Tom Brady has had and the games that he's won where he has been, not very good. And we started at the top. We can go down to the bottom. They have Drew Locke ranked 32nd out of 32 starting quarterbacks. Fair?
Well, I mean, given the guys above him, I think that is fair. I mean, if you want to be the person where you rank the rookies below him, because we haven't seen the rookies yet, I get it. I'm not going to argue with you, but I think you're a little crazy if you'd say that you wouldn't take Trevor Lawrence over Drew Locke, even though we haven't seen Lawrence play a snap yet. But the only one I guess that I kind of push back on is Jalen Hurts. And I guess the tiebreaker has to be Jalen Hurts is a better runner of the football, so you raise the floor of your offense. But I'm taking Drew Locke and Jalen Hurts. They should be 31A and 31B as far as I'm concerned. Both of them haven't shown enough. Both of them have struggled throwing the football. Both of them have struggled with making reads. I think it is fair. It's where the Broncos are right now. And Pro Football Focus has always been exceptionally critical of Drew Locke, even coming out of the draft. Their advanced analytics did not like Drew Locke, probably because his completion percentage over expectation has always been like some of the worst in both college and the NFL, which is a heavy analytic factor for a lot of those advanced grades. But I do think it's fair. I mean, he was bad last year. It's what it is. He played better down the stretch, but he also played against bad defenses. I think all of them were bottom 10 DVOA defenses. And the Broncos really simplified the offense. They were doing much more one read kind of dump off stuff. So it is what it is.
Well, and I look at it and wonder a little bit about the consistency in the rankings. Again, I mentioned, are you going to use the off-field stuff against Aaron Rodgers? Then why on earth would you have Deshaun Watson as high as you have him? And for me, the other part of this is, are you ranking talent or are you ranking production? Because I would have Zach Wilson or Sam Darnold probably last, but probably Zach Wilson. Now, who am I taking in a draft if I'm picking them on a vacuum? I'd probably take Zach Wilson over Drew Locke right now. I'd feel better about the skill set. If I'm taking a fantasy quarterback and who's going to have the better season, I'm going to take Drew Locke. He's on a much better team in a much better situation. The Jets still have a lot to prove, and you got a rookie quarterback in a place like that. So again, to me, that's a little bit of the inconsistency of the rankings there. The other part to me, and Air Mason comes in again with the super saying, Peyton's the GOAT. What's interesting, if you follow the link to my channel, and we talk about, we did a segment on, choose one. You got one game to win. Who do you want? Who do you want? And Nick, who'd you go with the quarterback?
I went with Peyton Manning. John Elway was obviously he's on the Mount Rushmore over Peyton Manning, but that's because of longevity. He was on this team longer. But a single game, I mean, in my book, Peyton's as good as it's ever done it, and I'd feel more confident with him protecting the football, doing what needs to be done to win from the general on the field that he is versus John Elway. And some people out there might scream John Elway. It's a bet. There's not a wrong choice here.
Right.
My personal preference would be Peyton Manning. He's, in my opinion, he's the best quarterback I've ever seen play.
Well, and getting back to Air Mason, appreciate that. I think he feels bad for that 28-3 comment. So maybe you should feel worse. I like it. It's hard to talk trash to an Atlanta fan because we're already beat down. What are you gonna do? Make us feel worse? Yeah, we know. But one of the other things that was interesting to me was the rookie rankings.
Yeah,
that's Justin Fields at number 25, which I believe was the number 2 rated rookie, and that part isn't so interesting to me. What's interesting to me is who was behind him that passed on quarterbacks, because there were several. Detroit Lions, they've only got 1 year of Jared Goff. He could be gone. Carolina Panthers, they've only got 1 year of Sam Darnold. They're going to pay him a lot. They only have 1 year of him, so they've hedged their bets. But what happens if he flops miserably? The Miami Dolphins. They traded up and down, so they're back in Tua. They could have come out of that spot. The Philadelphia Eagles, again, they could have been a quarterback place, and the Denver Broncos, obviously. Yeah. So those were the 5 teams that were 26-32 that passed on Justin Fields. I think when we go back and grade this draft, in my opinion, a lot of it's going to have to do, obviously, on these quarterbacks. A couple of things that we're going to look at is Trey Lance. That was a big storyline, and Justin Fields falling. How Justin Fields does is how we're going to look back retroactively at a lot of these quarterbacks, or a lot of these draft picks at 1 through 10.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. And looking over these rankings, I'm actually pretty surprised about some of these quarterback rankings. I think the first 15 they have, maybe I wouldn't agree with the order exactly, like Baker Mayfield over Stafford and Ryan Tannehill and Derek Carr. No, not for me. Not right now. But after that, you have Joe Burrow at 18. I'm not sure about that. Ryan Fitzpatrick at 19. I don't know about that. Daniel Jones at 20. Jimmy Garoppolo at 22. I don't know. I think looking at this, you need one of these top 15 quarterbacks if you're really going to make some noise in the NFL. But unless you have an absolutely incredible roster around them, but we all know that's not sustainable.
These quarterbacks only goes to prove what I've been saying for the last 7 or 8 years. The pro-style quarterbacks are playing baseball. The guys that are – because I look at a lot of these retreads. I'm like, is this really the best we can do for the 32 of the best jobs in the world as starting quarterback in the NFL? This is the best we can do with some of these retreads? Really? Let's go back and look at the 2020 Major League Baseball draft and look at the first 2 rounds and do that for the previous 5 years, and you're going to find 150 to 200 guys that are listed 6'3" to 6'6" as pitchers, and that's where your big-time throwers are going. They're going to baseball, and you see it more and more with the injuries and the concussions and the fact that people are carrying 12 and 13-man bullpen and rosters. There's 360 jobs in Major League Baseball that are going to pay you 7 figures, and you can do it for 20 years. So it's when we start looking at this list of quarterbacks and going, good Lord.
Yeah.
Playing baseball, man. I'm telling you. I've been saying it for almost a decade now, and I'm biased because I've been saying it, but I'm not wrong.
That's a little bit of a bummer because I do love myself some baseball, but football is exceptionally better. It's
changing the game. You're needing if the guy can't throw as well, you need him that can run. And that's where the running. The mobile quarterback hasn't come into vogue because you have to have a mobile quarterback. It's because the guys that can throw the ball down the field aren't there anymore. If you can get a guy that can run and throw, then you got something special. But there's only a few of those. There's not a ton of those guys.
And we actually have slightly different opinions on this. I'm sure we'll get into it multiple times in the summer, but I think part of the rushing quarterback comes from it's a trickle up of the schemes in college football where you can get more guaranteed yards if the quarterback can run. It's harder to obviously get the quarterbacks who are good enough to get the ball out to the receivers. And it's kind of also comes from the spread offense, right? If there's less guys in the box.
I go farther down, Nick. You go watch the Texas High School Association. Yeah. They're playing 7-on-7s. They have a state tournament. That's a 7-on-7 tournament. It's almost as big as the regular tournament. Now that's passing. That's pure passing because quarterback's not allowed to run. But it is about the old run and shoot. You're not old enough to remember when the run and shoot with the Detroit Lions was coming in the late 80s, but it was kind of looked down upon, as this gimmicky type of thing. Well, now everybody's running 4 wides. Yep. So if you can spread them out and you've got a mobile quarterback, then it helps. But you've got to be able to – you still have to be able to throw accurately. That's first and foremost the most important thing at the quarterback position. You're just not getting nearly as many of these 6'5" guys that are throwing the ball nearly as hard because all those guys, the bullpens are full of those guys that are throwing 95 to 100 miles an hour now in the Major League Baseball. It's crazy.
Yeah, and the other point that, again, just we differ slightly on this is it's offensive line play. The offensive lines in today's NFL, you cannot have a quarterback who is the Jacob Easons of the world, right? Like he should have played baseball for sure. He can't move. He's terrible in the pocket. He's got an incredible arm, but he's just so slow and heavy footed in the pocket that he's a sitting duck. And you need your offensive line to be good 5 across to function with him as the quarterback. And that's just simply put, that's just too hard to do in today's NFL. You cannot roster an offensive line that good consistently to run that type of offense.
If there's anybody that can help change that, Nick, it's going to be Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray. Mm-hmm. 2 guys that are short. Sorry for an NFL guy. They're under 6 feet tall. Both. Kyler Murray was a little bit more celebrated as a baseball player because he's got a big bonus from the Oakland A's. Mm-hmm. But when Russell Wilson was coming out, I didn't rank him very high because I'm like, he's never going to play football. He's 5'11", 5'10 and a half, and a baseball prospect. He's not going to play quarterback. Well, he did. So those guys having success can help change the position as well and bring some of these guys back into it. Again, those guys were elite throwers. They're mobile, and that helps them get around, but they were elite passers, and they were elite baseball players too. Yep.
And another elite baseball player, John Elway, out there using the leverage to get out of the Baltimore Colts at the time. I guess we do have a few more dark horses here that I would like to get to before we're getting on out of here. Justin Stranad, somebody who was injured last year. I see people talk about him as this great athlete coverage linebacker. He is not an athlete, guys. I mean, his testing numbers were quite poor, but he is fluid in space and he is fine in coverage. I mean, really, with what the Broncos are asking him to do, he's not going to be on an island very often. He's not going to be covering. The most he's going to do is be flexed out to cover a running back out wide. That's like the hardest demand Fangio will put on linebackers, which is not nothing. Don't get me wrong. But still, Stranad, I think he's got a chance to come for that will position. I think he is a better coverage linebacker than Josie Jewell is. And I think there's a good chance that he could take that starting spot and run with it or displace Jewell at some point. If the Broncos are just looking for a little bit more movement skills out of the position. And the other dark horse here, I haven't said any rookies yet, but somebody's going to have to step up between Jamar Johnson and Caden Stearns for that third safety position. There are going to be snaps out there for that third safety position. Caden Stearns, a better athlete, but worse, better athlete, less ball skills. Jamar Johnson, probably better split field off the bat, better ball skills, but worse tackler. So I'm really interested in that competition. It's not just for this year. It's going forward as well. And we have some other people throwing out some dark horses. Tyree Cleveland is a good name to watch out for. Javonta Williams. I wouldn't say Javonta Williams is much of a dark horse. I think he's going to get plenty of work. I mean, the Broncos traded up for a running back at 35 overall. I'm going deeper dark horses than that. And we got Nasruddin saying Mike Boone. That is a dark horse as well. I think after the Broncos paid, I brought in, they obviously have Melvin Gordon. They also traded up for Javonta Williams, like I just said. Mike Boone, he might get a chance, but I think you brought in Mike Boone more so for his special teams ability than anything else. And that's the big thing with Royce Freeman, right? He doesn't offer actually much special teams ability. Mike Boone does. So that's probably going to be the big differentiator there.
Yeah, the big backs don't typically return kicks, and Royce Freeman's a big back.
Yeah.
So yeah, that can help you when you're on the fringe. Can you play special teams? You better be able to.
Yeah. Yep. No, absolutely. That's a good one. And Aaron Mason said he was going to go Peyton as well for which quarterback he would go with to win one football game for the Broncos history. So, I mean,
it almost feels like heresy to say it, but it's when you're choosing between John Elway and Peyton Manning, flip a coin. Okay, yeah. I'll take him. Yep. You're okay with that.
And Richie Rich coming in. Good morning, Richie Rich. I see he says he has 3 dark horses: Calvin Anderson, Andre Mintz, and Drew Himmelman. Somebody looks like they are a little bit offensive tackle obsessed. Richie Rich, what's going on here? The Broncos brought in Cameron Fleming and Bobby Massey. I think that probably speaks pretty loudly about what this team thinks of Calvin Anderson as far as a viable starter. Because if they really liked him, they probably could have sat on their hands for a bit and let camp play out before signing somebody. They didn't. They went out there. They weren't super aggressive, but they signed 2 guys, right? So I think that says obviously Calvin Anderson still could win that position. But I think going out and signing 2 of them it should speak pretty loudly about how they think of Calvin Anderson's viability as a starting tackle. But we'll see. And don't tweet that out and tag me in it, because Calvin Anderson will be in my DMs.
And Richie Rich also is enjoying Broncos for brunch on the East Coast. So Richie, we appreciate that.
Yeah, if we do that next time, somebody send me some mimosas, maybe a Bloody Mary. We'll get a little weird in here. Peter Middleton coming in over in Turkey. Good afternoon, good early evening to you, Peter. My sleeper is Cooper at outside linebacker. And Cooper is an interesting one, but Cooper, I think, is getting a heart procedure, a cleanup heart procedure. So he's one that I'm expecting. I think the Broncos may stash him on the IR this season. It's kind of the hush hush things that like players, teams can do, right? Like, oh, you have 53, what is it now? 55, 56 man roster spot. Well, you can sneak in a guy and protect them, especially those bottom guys that are younger guys, by putting them on the IR for the season. So I think that's probably what you're going to see with Cooper. That's what I would do, right? He gets a year in the league. Then you're not really subjugating him to being picked off by putting him on the practice squad. That's not bad practice, even if it is a little bit of a loophole for those bottom of the roster guys.
I keep seeing Tyree Cleveland get mentioned. Has he stayed out of trouble? Honestly, I mean, I don't mean that facetiously, but that was the big knock on him coming out of high school. Because we actually had him, I think, at scout.com at the time as the number 1 receiver in the country.
Yes, he has.
But he, good, because he just oozed talent. But, he was in and out of trouble a little bit going through his career. So hopefully he's hit that, because he's certainly 23 years old. Like I said, a ton of talent ahead of him. So if he puts it all together, then you've got something there too. So that's a good shout.
Yep, Tyree Cleveland. Broncos are really deep at wide receiver. Obviously, you just lost Deshawn Hamilton for the year with the ACL injury, which is really unfortunate for him. I know that there was the Broncos, the rumors that Deshawn Hamilton was being shopped. Apparently, that was coming more so from Deshawn Hamilton's representation rather than the actual league itself, because Hamilton probably saw the writing on the wall with where he stood in the pecking order of, at the highest, the 5th wide receiver on this team, and somebody who doesn't offer much special teams ability, but the ACL is a bummer. And I think the Broncos put him on IR yesterday. So that might be the end of Deshawn Hamilton in Denver. Failure to launch. I think he'll land on his feet though. I always thought that he's an okay player. Kind of a lesser Jarvis Moss, where he's not going to do much down the field. But if you're looking for a slot who can get out there and block and get some separation underneath, he can do that for you. Some team, especially a team running a wide zone offense that needs some blocking from that slot position, will value him. We got Damien Willis. I'm going to be honest with you, Nazardine. That's just not ringing a bell yet. Not enough coffee yet. And we got a lot of Spanish and or French going on in the chat as well right now. So, or I had a stroke. I'm not. Could be either. But
check your settings.
God, yeah, Baxter. I don't speak Spanish. But yeah,
that's not Spanish. That's French. Not that what you said isn't true anyway, but that's French.
I saw somebody say, I think it was Beagle was saying, where is the library in French or in Spanish as well? Quoting
French.
Dodgeball. Oh, that was French as well.
It's all Latin based. So you wonder why people can speak so many languages. It's because once they learn one, it's easier to learn the other. We just don't happen to learn more than one because our country is as big as Europe.
Yeah. I don't even, my French teacher would be upset with me. I I took French in high school. That was a long time ago, and it was one of those things where I'd learn it for the test and then out the other year.
Damien Willis is a wide receiver that was picked up by the Bengals. Didn't play a ton in Cincinnati, can't body. So I wouldn't have big expectations there.
Yeah, no, that's is what it is. And Broncos did. So we have Deshawn Hamilton. They did release him. He cleared waivers, and he's on the Broncos non-football injury list, which I think he was injured outside the facility as well. So I'm not sure what that means for him contractually. What for the money, maybe the Broncos are going to save that $2 million that he was going to get paid because of that. And that's people can be mad at the Broncos for it, but really the NFLPA is probably going to have to answer to this before any team does. And the league is pushing the Broncos to do this as well. So we'll see what happens there. But he was released, but then he landed on the Broncos. He was waived, because he's still on his rookie contract. That's how that language works. And now he's on the Broncos non-football injury list. So we'll see what happens. The Broncos are deep there, though. They got Seth Williams, Tyree Cleveland, Tim Patrick, KJ Hamler, Jerry Jeudy, and Cortland Sutton, working our way from the bottom to the top, and Deshaun Spencer as well, returner. So we'll see what happens. And we got Peter Milton coming in here. If Sutton starts slow due to injury, do we play Patrick instead or keep with our wide receiver one? I think if Sutton, that's a good question. I think Sutton's going to play no matter what. He's talented enough. You're going to have to let him kind of knock some of the cobwebs off. Like, did the Broncos bench Bradley Chubb when he was kind of coming off slowly after injuring himself? No, he needed the reps out there to get to the point where he could be that superstar again. So I'm going to go no. I think the bigger question in here is Tim Patrick versus KJ Hamler. What are you looking for offensively with your wide receivers? Because you could use Tim Patrick and Cortland Sutton as your de facto boundary guys with Jerry Jeudy playing the slot. Or are you going to see it be more Tim Patrick as your fourth wide receiver with KJ Hamler being that speedy slot and Jerry Jeudy being the Z receiver? And that might come down to more so, where's Jerry Jeudy the best? Because at college, Jerry Jeudy at the slot, good freaking luck stopping Jerry Jeudy in the slot. But in the NFL, to get more value, you're hoping that he can get some more boundary reps, some more Z receiver reps. So we'll see. The Broncos are they're 4 deep at wide receiver, a little bit of projection with KJ Hamler. But it's going to be interesting to see how those battles play out, and what's the formula that gets the most work for 11 personnel out of this offense.
So much is going to depend on the quarterback play. It's scary.
Yeah,
I know. It's scary. There's you've been fond of the phrase "there's no excuses," but there's no excuses this year. If all these guys come back healthy, offensive line should be solidified. Another year in the system, another year not necessarily in the system, but another year as a pro is a big deal for a 24-year-old kid.
Yeah. Nope, you're right. Some people will still point at the offensive line, but you're not going to have if you had to have a top 5 offensive line and top 5 weapons and a top 5 offensive coordinator to properly evaluate your quarterback, you're not going to be in the league very long as an evaluator. You have to be able to see beyond that, because quarterbacks have to deal with adversity. Teams have to be able to deal with adversity. You're not going to have a perfect situation around you. You have to rise above it. You have to raise those guys around you. So just is what it is. And we see a lot of a conversation going on here about before we get on out of here, I want to hear your opinion about the Broncos' interior offensive line depth. Obviously, the tackle position is one that the Broncos tried to get 3 different times in the draft. It didn't happen. First, they were going to take Brady Christensen. He went the pick before to the Panthers in the 3rd round. Traded back. They were going to take Spencer Brown. He went, I think, 3 picks before. The Broncos ended up going Quinn Miners then. And they are also going to take Tommy Doyle from Miami, Ohio. And he went to the Bills as well. The Bills doubling down on value positions, edge rusher, offensive tackle.
Well,
but the Broncos
I can't speak too much on the overall depth, but I can certainly talk about Miners again. He came in from North Dakota State, wasn't it? One of the smaller schools for sure. And at the Senior Bowl, and was just pushing guys around. And he was doing it at 3 different positions. He was doing it at both guards and center. And there's a player, I'm not sure how many of y'all know him, but he was a middle round pick named Ben Jones, who came from the University of Georgia. It looked just like that. But he had a little more exposure coming out of high school. He'd show up, this waddly guy, little pigeon-toed, belly hanging out, and he would just destroy people. He shows up at the NFL Combine, and all the writers that don't know anything about him are just like, ugh. I'm like, yeah, just wait. just put him in front of somebody. The guy's a people mover. That's what Miners is. And I think he's having some fun with it. Someone's probably going to, if they haven't already, someone do this now, and I'll take credit for it later. Someone's going to be Quinn Miners' belly on Twitter. That's going to end up being their, gut. Quinn Miners' gut on Twitter. That's going to be their. It's going to have its own persona now, which is good for him.
Yeah.
He's coming from a smaller school, and I think he's enjoying the attention a little bit because he's going to back it up. You don't want to line up across from this guy. He's going to move you around a little bit.
It's one of those things, though, where me being the non-fun, I'm just a fun sucker sometimes. It's like Drew Locke with the dancing and the rapping, right? Like, it's fun until he's out there not doing well, right? So if Quinn Miners is out there hanging out the gut and you're all, making silly of it, and he's out there getting whipped by defensive tackles, it's not going to be so fun anymore. So
Dylan, thanks. And Dylan Radins was the guy I was thinking of from North Dakota State, who also was very good. And I go back to, I'll quote sports movies all the time. Crash Davis telling Nuke Lelouch in Bull Durham, he says, you've got shower on your fungus shoe. You got fungus on your shower shoes. When you win 20 in the show, the press will call you colorful. Until then, you're a slob. So, right now it's all fun and games and you're colorful. You get whipped around a little bit, you're just a slob with a big belly.
Yeah. Yep. That's the name of it. This is a guy who's got a lot of press, not press, but a lot of hype going into the draft as somebody who was extremely talented and powerful, but the injuries dropped him in the draft. And we saw a bit of him last year. He struggled in pass reps, but he had some really, really fun blocking plays. Netane Moody. Do you have any thoughts or eyes on Netane Moody? Played left tackle for no? Okay.
Nope,
Fresno
pass.
State.
Next question, Alex.
Okay, Netane Moody. He's somebody that you want to watch for as well. A power blocker. I see a lot of Will Hernandez in his game, both the good and the bad. Powerful guy, can create movement at the point of attack in the run game, but doesn't always play with the most balance. And I think part of that is because he has such short arms. So he's going to have to learn how to play with more patience and just control overall, and that's running and passing sets. But he's somebody to watch for as well. And we had Graham Glasgow. He injured last year. He was on the show. He did fine, but he needs to do better this season for what he's getting paid. Like you talked about, he's the Broncos' second highest paid player or something crazy like that for a guard. That's probably one of the reasons the Broncos have so much cash on hand. Also, the Broncos, the way they set their contracts up, like Garrett Bowles and Justin Simmons are going to get massive bumps in 2022, which correlates with when the Broncos should be sold as well.
Well, it helps when you don't have a $25 million quarterback.
Yes. Yep. So, but Moody's the one to watch for as a dark horse. Wanted to get him out there. I'm not sure what his path is here because he is probably purely a guard. I see somebody like, can't Moody play tackle? He played there in college. I think the dude has not only sub 33 inch arms, he might even have sub 32 inch arms, or like somewhere like he is, out there like a T-Rex. He's strong and he's fun at the point of attack, but he is not playing tackle. Just don't even ask. It's not happening. But Moody, watch out for. Dalton Reisner struggled last year. Glasgow got injured and then kind of struggled after that. The Broncos are looking to get some more push on the interior offensive line because they were bad last year in the run game, just point blank bad. Moody's somebody that you want to watch for as well. Man, he's going to get a chance in camp, and those guys above him better bring it because he's going to get a chance. So don't sleep on Netane Moody. I feel like a lot of people are, Quinn Miners is the shiny new thing, but Moody's been here for a year, and that matters for the offensive line play.
So Packers loading. J.R. Whitehead has a comment in here. I like Packers loading up on QBs to assume the Pack will trade him. There's an old saying: you got two QBs, you don't have one. So I think they got their guy. We'll see. I'm always a skeptic that I just think that Rodgers is going to stay with the Green Bay Packers. Yeah.
And we got Jeremy saying Nick is an arm length snob. No, I am a metrics threshold snob. I do not bet on outliers. It's just bad business. I'm not going to the penny slots and being like, okay, I need this to pay off my mortgage. That's just dumb. Don't do that.
Gambling's for people that are bad at math.
Yep. And that's why all my draft bets this year were ones that I ended up winning because somebody laid out the odds. I'm like, I'm jumping on that. That's free money. So I'll take that every time. But guys, we got to get out of here. I got to go into the 9 to 5, but we appreciate the heck out of you guys. You can follow us on Twitter. Follow Scott at Scout Kennedy. You can follow myself at Nick Kendell MHH. Also follow the Mothership podcast account at Huddle Up Pod, and follow the Purely the Mothership at Mile High Huddle. If you guys are joining us on Facebook today, please click those thumbs up, the heart reacts. We're at 20 right now. 20 is a good number, but let's get up to 25. I was a baseball guy before I was a football guy. 25 will always have a special place in my heart because Mark McGwire, watching Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa in 1998. That's my first sports memories.
Andrew Jones. Andrew Jones was 25. So 9-time Gold Glover, about 400 home runs.
Yeah, swinging that sledgehammer around to get the wrist strong. I remember those days. Mm-hmm. That'd be great. Also, but even more importantly, like, subscribe, and share if you guys are joining us on YouTube today. That can do us a heck of a lot of good, help us reach new listeners, and keep the show viable and running. Speaking of following on YouTube, follow Scott's channel on YouTube as well. Go check out my guest appearance on there for Broncos Best Ever yesterday, where we did about 45 minutes. I even, for you, I guess, sicko fans out there, Richie Rich, looking at you, I did the Broncos top 5 offensive line players all time as well. Scott was trying to get me out the door. I'm like, no, I did the work. We're going to talk
linemen. I'm like, okay.
We have to do offensive line. So we did the offensive line as well. It was a good time. But make sure you go check out Scott's channel. Find me on there. I find Scott on there at youtube.com/C/Scott Kennedy. Also, I'm going to drop the link in the chat. You guys can just click that and don't even have to worry about it. Don't even have to type it out. Easy as it gets. Guys, that's been it for Broncos for Breakfast. We will see you again next Tuesday at carry the 1, 8 o'clock Mountain Time. That'll be great. And Scott, what do you got going the rest of the day? Any yard work going on? It looks like it's going to actually
there's
rain.
Enough yard work going outside of my window. Like I said, I live my backyard is a national forest, so it's an older neighborhood, and there's a lot of tree work constantly being done. So it's noisy out there. I've hit the mute button a couple times. Hopefully that hasn't been too distracting. The microphone's doing its job, but baseball practice tonight. That's the only thing I'm thinking about right now, on top of just the day-to-day.
Yep, absolutely. Well, I'm going to get going. I got to go take care of the dog. We appreciate all you guys. We'll see you again next Tuesday. Stay safe as always, and go Broncos.